Oh, welcome to Tarot and Attachment. My name is Erin Smith, and I'm a professional tarot reader and an associate marriage and family therapist. So today is actually Monday, May 5th. I usually record these on Sunday or Saturday, depending on what my schedule allows. But this weekend, I was attending a meditation retreat. And so I didn't get a chance to get to this recording. So I'm taking some time today to check in with the cards and get some insight into how we might live in a more healthy and balanced way, concentrating on the energies of the week ahead, feeling into the collective and everything that's going on in the world today, and just asking for some guidance on how we can align with energies within ourselves, within the world at large, to be more balanced and hopefully for the betterment of ourselves and others. So I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle, and I will be with you momentarily. I'm just going to say a prayer over these cards. Such a beautiful answer in response to the question. And, I'm not surprised to see some of the cards that are coming up in relation to this question. These cards are all symbolic signifiers of balance. And in fact, what I am seeing both within the archetypes of the major arcana that are showing up here in this poll, I'm also seeing a really lovely, healthy balance amongst all the elements of the minors. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the tarot as a system, it's sort of broken up into two major sections, the major arcana and the minor arcana. And the majors are all the pictorial cards that have a have the name or the title written beneath each image. And these tend to be big archetypal references to movements within the soul or states of soul development. Maybe you might look at them as that. Whereas the minor arcana, which are broken up into four different suits, much more represents like the day-to-day workings of a life in order to achieve these soul developments. And these four suits of the minor arcana represent elements, elemental energies that combine to create life circumstances within the human experience. So we have pentacles, which represent earth. We have swords, which represent air. We have wands that represent fire. And we have cups that represent water. And so what we're talking about here, again, if the question is, how do we live in a healthy, balanced way? Well, these are some suggestions on how we might do that. And it's very interesting, the collection of cards that are coming up here. First of all, it is notable that we have two pages here, the page of cups and the page of swords. So not only are swords indicative of the element of air, but they represent, in correlation, things that relate to the mind, to communication, and all the sort of branches of that tree that you might think of. So thoughts, ideas, communication, technology, the written word, the way that we interact with one another in terms of intellect. These are all elements or expressions that are governed by the suit of swords. And pages represent newness, the beginning stages of something, just like in life. The beginning stages of a human life are expressed through childhood. And what are the characteristics of childhood that are being expressed through page energy? Well, it's curiosity, not dragging a lot of baggage around. You haven't lived enough of life in order to become jaded in your experience yet. So there's a kind of open curiosity, a desire to explore based on authentic interest. And it sort of represents having a new beginning in terms of the way that you're going about uh, engaging with the world. And this is happening at the level of the mind and also happening at the level of the heart. So again, if cups represent water, water also is correlated with emotions, feelings, relationships, that this is very much akin to love and intuition. That's what cups represent. So this can be an expression of the way that we interact with other human beings based on our emotions, the way we feel about things at a core level, our sense of values, and just emotions in general. So you can even think, if we put these two together, sometimes we will have a thought, an insight, an idea, and there's a very particular emotional quality to that thought. And it's can be negative, positive, or neutral in its expression, right? If you're having a lot of negative self-talk, then sometimes the accompanying emotion is not always pleasant. You might feel sort of sick to your stomach when you're having a lot of self beration in your head. Beration, is that a word? You're berating yourself in your mind. So, but again, because these energies are expressing through pages, you know, Page energy is some of my favorite in the whole deck because it's really inviting us to return to a state of innocence, open-mindedness, open-heartedness. Again, children haven't lived enough of life in order to become set in their ways, to become jaded or despondent, right? Having had the same experience over and over again has limited their view of what is possible. That's what happens to us as we grow into adults, and often as a result of childhood wounding. These are sort of archetypal expressions of childhood, like the highest octave of the child is one who is safe and seen and nurtured and able to express through their engagement with the world in this very open way. They haven't been harmed, so they're not as guarded. And this is a kind of energy that we're being asked to call upon within ourselves and to really balance our hearts and our heads. And so ultimately, check in with yourself. Are you having a lot of intense emotion that is overwhelming you and causing you to shut down or retreat? Then it might be time to check in with your narratives, re-examine them, reimagine them. Notice if you are able to bring the prefrontal cortex into the equation, if you're able to choose a wise narrative, if that won't help with that overwhelming emotional expression. Or maybe there's too much narrative. You're in your head too much. You feel disembodied. There isn't enough of an emotional connection or expression. The world feels flat and analytical. You are prone to overthinking everything. It's hard to make a decision because there's no emotional quality that's helping you lean towards one choice or another. So again, that we are all being called to look within ourselves and notice where we may need the equal and opposite energy in order to create this sense of balance. So that's the balance of heart and head, water and air. Let's look now at earth and fire. So pentacles represent the physical, tangible ways that we meet our needs in the world. And they often get associated with money. And that is simply because we live in a society where money pays for our essential needs, right? We go to the store, we buy food to nourish our bodies. We buy a house or we pay rent so that we have a roof over our heads. These are really material resources. And so there are many different expressions, including the earth herself, right? That nourishes us, feeds us, provides us with these material elements that create a rich and full life. And the Eight of Pentacles is a representation of putting in the work, putting in the right amount of effort and showing up consistently to build something that will ultimately enrich our lives. So, you can think of it in terms of building a business. When you begin something new, it takes a tremendous amount of effort, and you have to kind of consistently put in that effort on a daily basis, oftentimes for many years, before something develops into this sustainable resource that can feed you over time. And this is really what the Eight of Pentacles represents: building your wealth and well-being one step at a time and continuing to put that effort in order for something to grow. I mean, you can even think of this as, planting seeds in the garden and then tending to the garden over time in order for those seeds to flourish and bear fruit. That's very much what the Eight of Pentacles is pointing to. That if we are open-minded and open-hearted and then continuing to put energy and effort into something, it has an opportunity to take root in this life and become more substantial and feed us in a good way. And sort of the culmination of all of this, I would say, is this divine inspiration to take action that may even be a kind of culmination of an idea and a feeling that allows us then to take action out in the world. Aces are like the highest octave of an energy. It's like getting a divine download from the universe. And you can think of wands as passion and creativity and life force energy. It's that fire in your belly that digests your food and allows you to break it down into its component parts, the nutrients that then go to facilitate all of our body's functions. It is the inspiration that we feel that allows us to take action. I really appreciate this organization that is doing good works out in the world, and I'm inspired to join them and join forces and to put in the energy and effort to make something happen within that sphere. And that feels aligned with my values, and it helps me to feel a sense of clarity about why I am motivated to do something or take this action. So again, you can see how these energies, these elements combine to allow us to feel in right relationship to our own desires, our own interests, our own ideas, to put in energy and effort to make something grow that will ultimately feed ourselves and likely others as well. And again, being able to receive this sort of divine inspiration based on our passion, you can think of this as like, notice the things that you are passionate about. And maybe begin to think about those interests, those inspired interests as a kind of gift from source, that you are meant to do something with that, whether you're passionate about music or art or politics or humanitarian aid, whatever it is. Spirit is asking us to notice what stirs us in this way and what actions we can take to develop that in a much bigger way so that that can sort of stabilize and support us over time. And we're being called through the Four of Wands to make a commitment to our passion, to take real definitive action in order to facilitate that passion, and to make sure that we're keeping an open mind and an open heart as we're moving through this process of building something new. This is the marriage card. And of course, the thing that differentiates a marriage from any other kind of passionate love affair is that we make a commitment. We make a commitment to show up on a daily basis, regardless of circumstances, right? Some days you're into it and some days you're not. But if you continue to show up, then you're building a base, a stable base. Notice this sense of great balance. This is a perfectly symmetrical image that represents the joyful union of all of these elements. And then, of course, we have the Lovers, and the Lovers is a perfect representation of how we find balance within our soul. It is this perfect, balanced condition of tending both to our masculine and feminine nature. And in the tarot, in Hermetic traditions, which the tarot is sort of reflective of, that it's not about gender. In fact, regardless of what gender you identify as, that these energies exist within us all. The masculine energy is that which takes action, which asserts its will out in the world in an externalized way in order to make something happen. And feminine energy is more internal, it's more receptive. It receives insight, it receives wisdom. It holds space for something to grow. What might be a seed of an idea, if you meditate on it, if you are contemplative in the way that you engage it, it can grow to being an insightful sense of how you might want to take action out in the world. You need both of these energies in order to create something in the world, whether that's building a house or having a child. That there has to be some internal investigation, some ability to sit with a feeling, an idea, to investigate it deeply, to be present with it, to nurture it or foster it so that it has space to grow. But if you only leave it within these internal realms and never find ways to express it out in the world, then you have interrupted this divine process. Again, you need both of these energies. They work together, they dovetail in this beautiful way. And when they are in balance, it's like an expression of divinity. And so Spirit is saying that this is a part of a healthy human life, is to notice where we are out of balance, apply the equal and opposite energy, or notice which one of those elements is lacking, and invite it to express in a greater way. And this is how we move through life, in this beautiful energetic flow, directing our energy where it's needed in order to facilitate a healthy mind, body, and spirit, which of course are the essential building blocks of a healthy collective society. And again, I see it here represented as well. Like, I'm sure it's not lost on you that you have these central figures between these light and dark pillars for the high priestess and sphinxes for the chariot. And even these, so these are representative of being able to harness these seemingly opposing energies in order to create an expression of power. And one is geared towards our inner intuitive selves, which is asking us to connect deeply with our own intuition by being able to hold the tension of opposites. This is the source of her strength. And as what's being represented here in the backdrop behind the high priestess is this expression of fertility, of the giving of life. That is what pomegranates represent because of the multitude of seeds and their deep red color, which is indicative of lifeblood. So this idea that when we are not being forced to move between extremes, and I'm going to bring in the teachings of the meditation retreat I attended this weekend. Craving and aversion in the Buddhist tradition is really the source of suffering. So this endless battle that goes on in the life of a human, I want that, and I'm clinging to it. I want to keep this for myself. I don't want to give it up. And of course, in life, we are constantly subject to change. Things are moving and shifting and changing and growing, that it is impossible to hold something fixed in space and time. Our loved ones, when we have young children, we want to keep them young forever. We want to keep them fixed in this state of being a young child so that you can always express that feeling of maternal or paternal love. But of course, that doesn't happen. Children grow up, they become their own people. And, one might argue they've been their own people from the very beginning. There's no keeping that moment fixed in time. And the more that we cling to it, the more we suffer. Similarly with aversion, that I do not want. I do not like that. I don't want sickness. I don't want aging. I am trying to push against these natural forces and keep them out. And of course, that too is you can never win that battle. So it's this idea of being able to notice these feelings within us without trying to push against something or cling to something in order to create a sense of safety. You can think of the high priestess as having a foot in both worlds. She understands these forces. She also sees that these are like two sides of the same coin. You cannot separate the front of the card from the back of the card. So rather, again, than being the pendulum that swings between the two of them, if you can hold the tension of these opposites without getting sucked into one or the other, there is something that happens that's like a transformation. You are able to move easily between these energies in a skillful way. And then the chariot is something very similar, that really this is about directing one's will to take action to good effect. And again, if you are connected to your intuition, if you are not battling within yourself of in terms of these opposing forces, you can harness the energy of that and direct your will rightly to good effect. So this is the map. This is the map for balancing the elements within ourselves, for balancing the energies of seemingly opposing forces in order to take an action that lands well, that brings about health of mind, body, and spirit. So I very much appreciate this message, and I really love the imagery that showed up today in order to convey that to us. And I hope that you find this message helpful. And I'm wishing you all great blessings on the week ahead and in your lives in general. Much love to you. Take care.